Hi, my name is Donald Spann. I'm the instructor for Call Center Cast, where you can launch a remote-based call center in the next 30 to 60 days. And today I want to talk about something that I get asked all the time, which is what's the difference between a virtual assistant and a virtual receptionist, right? And actually, a lot of times when running my company, Vicky Virtual, before it got acquired last year, people would constantly, ask about, oh, so can the VA do this? Can the VA do that? A lot of people confuse virtual assistants with virtual receptionists all the time, but yet they are different. So this video, the purpose of it is to sort of distinguish the differences for you guys so you know once and for all, because there just isn't a lot of information that specifically take those two terms and split them apart. So not only am I going to talk about that, I'm going to talk about why I strongly preferred running a virtual receptionist company, because I did have a virtual assistant company as well as a virtual receptionist company. So let's jump into it. So a bit of background about me. The virtual assistant company that I ran was called Kara Virtual Assistant. We launched that in 2017. And then the virtual receptionist company that I ran, founded and ran, was called Vicky Virtual Receptionist, okay? So what does a virtual assistant do? Now this sort of list was taken from a very large, very popular US-based virtual receptionist company called Zertual. They're, some hot startup venture back. And so, as it says, they do inbox management, calendar management, expenses, invoices, social media strategy, research, data entry, content marketing, event planning, travel booking, website maintenance, okay? And a virtual receptionist, they do call answering, outbound calls, call forwarding, routing, appointment scheduling. They provide you with a voicemail box as a service, and then some of them offer a live chat as a feature. Now, you might have noticed a difference between those two types of companies, right? Well, the common difference is that virtual assistants are typically task-focused and assigned to one or three clients, and virtual receptionists are call handling focused and assigned to 15 to 20 clients per agent as a group. So sometimes agents, virtual receptionists, are put into groups of like 4 to 6 agents or maybe up to 10, and so they'll handle a batch of clients. And then some companies will just have it so that all of their agents would be assigned to everyone, but the ratio of clients to agents should be somewhere between 15 to 20. If it's less than 15, they're probably spending too much on payroll. And if it's higher than 20 clients per agent, the quality of the service isn't going to be great because there will likely be too many calls coming in for the bandwidth that the agents have, to answer the phone. So why do I prefer running a virtual receptionist company? I'm going to break it down for you. With a virtual receptionist company, VR, versus a VA company, virtual assistant, with the VR company, you handle calls with live chat optional. But again, the entire premise is that you're handling calls, right? You're not spending your time working on tasks outside of the core task or the core function of call handling for your clients, right? With VAs, it can run the gamut. You can handle all kinds of things. Sometimes call answering is a part of that. So a VA might answer call for the company in addition to all the other stuff. And really, if you think about an in-house employee, it doesn't really have any terms of limitation. That's much closer to what a VA is, okay? With a VR company, clients pay you $300 a month, and with a VA company, clients pay you $500 to $3,000 a month. Now, the way it works with VR companies is that clients typically pay you based off of the number of minutes they have coming in. So, sort of like the old school cell phone bills, you have a certain number of minutes allotted per month. Say you have 300 minutes, and that might cost you $300 a month. On the VA side, it's usually an allotment of hours. So, if someone's paying $500 a month and it's a US-based VA, then, you're probably getting like 10 to 20 hours worth of labor a month. And, maybe you're getting 20 hours a week, if it's like a Philippine VA or, someone overseas, okay? If you're paying $3,000 a month, then it's probably one of the higher, options for a U.S.-based VA. So maybe you're getting 20 to 30 hours a week. And it can run higher than $3,000 a month if you actually have a full-time U.S. VA working for you, and it's through a company, okay? Now, another thing, VR companies, you handle less things, okay? So my entire premise as to why I like this type of company better, all right, is that you're handling less things. When I thought about, on the surface, when I was considering a VA company, because I had the Vicky Virtual Receptionist company for 2 years before we launched the VA company, I was like, man, let's figure out more ways in which we can help small businesses. Now, on the surface, that's great. But the fact is, the more things you do for your clients, on the surface it's great, but there's also more spots where you can mess it up, where your employee can mess something up. So what that means is that they need to be trained on more things. They need to be more proficient in more areas in order to do an effective job, a satisfactory job. And your quality assurance, in terms of operating the company, you're putting a lot more effort and energy and money and bandwidth, manpower into quality assurance. So when you have, a VR company, you're just handling calls. You just train the agent on how to handle calls, and that's it. Right? We don't think about things like bookkeeping or, research. We don't think about those types of things. The VA company, you think about everything. So rolling into the next point, training is quicker and more general, right? Any receptionist, if you're hiring a receptionist for a VR company, you can essentially have your training last a few days, and especially if that person has worked at a call center before, working for Sprint as a customer service rep, or, working for Amazon or whatever, right? They can pretty much plug and play. They just have to learn the new software, but when it comes to the general etiquette of answering calls and, what is the typical way to handle a call that most call centers look for, it's pretty generalized and it's pretty much the same. When it comes to VA companies, training can be really intense, and it changes for every client. And the reason for that is that whenever you're a client for a VA company, you're only ever going to be assigned to one VA. And so that means only one person knows exactly how to handle your account. And so if you ever lose them, well, you're starting from scratch, basically. So someone else has to be trained to, run your company. And there might be some downtime in between, right? With a VR company, you're in a situation where, there's at least a group of agents handling your call answering. So if one agent leaves, that can very likely not impact, your service as a company that is using a virtual receptionist company. So you can pretty much, lose an agent and then proceed with business as usual, right? Now on the other side is, if you lose a client and you have a virtual receptionist company, again, agents are assigned to 15 to 20 clients. So they don't have to worry about their paycheck, right? Or whether, you're bringing in enough revenue to justify paying them if you lose one of the 15 to 20 clients that they're assigned to. With the VA company, if you lose a client, a VA is only assigned to 1 to 3 clients. So oftentimes, especially if they're good, they might be assigned to one client because they're working more hours, right? They might be on the top package or whatever, close to full-time, 20 hours a week. So if that VA loses that client and you can't replace that client for that VA, well, they might not be getting paid. And a lot of VA companies, they only pay VA based off of the hours that they're working. So it's, it's very tough. So on the VR company side, you're in a situation where if you lose a client or an agent, business can pretty much proceed as usual. But on the VA side, there's downtime, and you have to basically start from scratch with reestablishing that relationship with either that client or with that VA. Okay. So at the end of the day, virtual receptionists handle an essential but small part of our client businesses, call answering. It's very important to make sure that you're answering calls for a company. Again, it's essential. There's many businesses, like let's say a painter or a landscaping company, any type of home services business, or like an attorney, right? Let's say an attorney is just a solo law firm, and he has a bunch of clients, and then, sometimes he's at court representing a client. Well, you can't answer calls as an attorney in court. If no one's answering the phone and, a potential client called and the lawyer is at court, well, that potential client is going to call the next lawyer on their list. And so that lawyer, that solo attorney that's trying to maybe grow his firm or her firm, is losing out on what could be thousands and thousands of dollars, because one client for an attorney can be a lot of money. So the call answering component is extremely important. That can be something that by itself can help an attorney grow a company. Okay. Now, virtual assistants, they manage and operate up to 70 to 80% of the client company, which is a lot of pressure, right? So let's say, you are a VA for an attorney. Not only are you probably answering calls, you might be handling bookkeeping, which I doubt, but it's possible, managing their books is a big task. You might be handling, getting documents to people, sending faxes, right? You might be handling email correspondence. All of those things are obviously very important, but what happens is that if you as a company owner are responsible for the people that do all of those things for a client, and that person screws up, there's, I just listed 5 different ways that person could screw up, and then you have to deal with it. So on the surface, it seems like, it'd be nice to be getting paid a bit more money to handle a lot more things. But the fact is, it's a lot harder to operate in that context. I really can't stress that enough. Okay? So both of these types of companies can make or break certain companies if done incorrectly, but call handling is significantly safer. And the last sort of thing I want to say to drive this home was our experience running both of these types of companies. So, Kara Virtual, we launched in March of 2017. We quickly grew to 25 full-time agents, like literally within, 8 to 10 months, we were at 25 full-time agents. But again, quality control was an ongoing problem that we never could get right. Essentially, we would get like maybe 50% of our agents that we actually hired would be pretty good and not really cause a lot of issue, and the other half, for whatever reason, any reason, would be an issue. And so we'd have to keep, recycling agents and doing what we could to keep our clients before they ran out of patience, and it was very difficult. And also our top agents, the ones that are very good, they're constantly at risk of being poached from us, because our clients would be like, oh man, I was trying to find a VA for myself. I used you guys. This person's great. How much do you want? Like, can I buy her off you guys? Or can I, buy him off you guys? And if we didn't want to do that, let's say they're assigned to another client, well, they would typically have a private conversation with the VA and offer them a certain amount of money, right? If we're paying them $15 an hour or whatever, and they're basically paying us $25 an hour, maybe they'll offer the VA $20. What VA doesn't want to take a $20, a $5 an hour rate, right? So it's always a risk. That type of risk doesn't exist on the VR side. So what happened was, eventually the co-founder of Kara Virtual and I literally we decided to stop trying to grow the company in around the end of 2018. And what we did was, when we lost the client, we wouldn't just try to replace them. We just let go of the VA and then, let it cycle down like on its own. And so we lost our last client in like April of 2019 and held on for a while. And once that client was lost, we formally dissolved the company April of 2019. Okay. Now, in the case of Vicky Virtual, the virtual receptionist company, we launched January 2015. First year, we hit 50 clients and over $10,000 a month, so a 6-figure company by the end of 2015. First 6-figure profit was 2016. First seven-figure offer for the company that we received happened early on in 2017. We turned it down. Then I scaled and automated the business even more to where I was working like literally 5 to 10 hours a week in pretty much all of 2018. And then we got acquired as a seven-figure company in the final quarter. I think it was October of 2019. It was like the middle of October of 2019. So the virtual receptionist company got launched, grew pretty freaking, solidly and comfortably, and then got acquired as a seven-figure company. With Kara, the VA company, which I started after having 2 years of experience in this. I started that company, and we ended up failing and dissolving. All right, so I hope you appreciate that breakdown. That's, again, so the main thing to remember is that in general, based off of my experiences, which of course are anecdotal, the easier company to run by far is going to be a virtual receptionist company. More people are aware of virtual assistant companies, but the opportunity is in the virtual receptionist market, especially since the answering services category is a $3 billion industry that's grown 6% every year the last 3 years and counting. And the virtual receptionist category within that industry is growing. And so what you want is to capture a piece of an emerging market and something that's definitely in demand. Again, I can't say it enough. I strongly recommend joining a virtual receptionist company. And also, I hope this video gave you a good primer in terms of what the difference is between a virtual receptionist company and a virtual assistant company. With that said, I really hope you enjoyed the content, and if you did, please like and subscribe to this video, and make sure you get notified, because I'm going to continue to put out helpful, valuable content on this subject. And I know that there really isn't a lot of information out there on this subject, so I'm happy to provide it. So stay tuned, and thanks a lot for watching.